As voting in some countries for the European parliamentary elections kicks off today, now we will look at the race in the V4 countries. Voters in Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia will fill 110 of the 705 seats available in the European Parliament. Now let's dive in and explore the region and what we can expect from the V4 voters.
And joining us is Wojciech Przybylski, Editor-in-Chief of the Visegrad Insight. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone.
So now, as the 2024 elections kick off, the Visegrad region, especially Hungary, I feel like stands at a crucial juncture. So what are the main challenges that Viktor Orban faces now in this election, both domestically and within the EU context, to your mind?
Well, Viktor Orban is expected to win the upcoming elections and to confirm his power in the country. All of the EU election races are considered as a test of power of national governments, and Viktor Orban is likely to pass that one. The challenger that comes from the opposition, Peter Magyar, is indeed very strong, very agile in his campaigning, and has mobilized most of the opposition votes. But the challenge is not for Viktor Orban that much as for the other opposition parties, because the newcomer sucks most of the air, most of the attention from the opposition voters away from the existing opposition parties. So in Hungary, domestically, things are deemed to remain constant in a way, and internationally, Viktor Orban, when he got his MEPs to the representatives to the European Parliament, he will be in a position he never wanted to be in the first place, but has to play his cards of being non-aligned. No one wants to sit in the same bench as Viktor Orban. With none of the political families actually trade horses with him. Even the former government of Poland, PIS, could not persuade their colleagues to invite Viktor Orban to the European Conservative Reformist Group because of his toxic views and, again, non-alignment with the strategy of the European Union and NATO countries that dominate the direction in the European Parliament as well.
Right now, when we turn our attention to Poland, any big upsets? I believe there's about 6 or so seats expected for Konfederacja. And depending on who you ask in the European Union, if you look at some of the far-right parties in France or in other places, they tend to see the Law and Justice Party as a natural ally. What can we expect as far as the right side or the far-right side of the aisle here in Poland?
In terms of narrative symbols, probably you can put such parties somehow aligned, but the trouble lies in structures, in organized politics. And when it comes to organized politics, all of these fringe parties, far-right, extreme right parties, are extremely divided themselves. They are not forming a common group. There are many. As I mentioned, Viktor Orban is non-aligned. There are identitarian groups, identity groups. There are groups around the European Conservative Reformist Group. And although they may be altogether, if you want to count these numbers, major force in the European Parliament, you get the political force by being strategically together in a grouping, being able to take action that is coordinated action. And it is unlikely they will. What the symbols and narratives will fly, they will primarily serve to divide, to undercut the European project, and that they should be viewed as such, rather than any political offer for the continent.
And now perhaps leaving Poland for a moment and looking at the Visegrad group as a whole, do you feel like now these European elections might impact now the stability within the Visegrad group as a whole?
Well, Visegrad group is, there are 4 countries that are part of the EU. And whatever EU performs, the Visegrad group gets the outcomes of this performance in terms of job security, defense.
Of course. What I mean is,
and so on.
Right. What I mean is that we do see that now, for instance, within the Visegrad Group itself, we had the V4, and now it's becoming slowly the V2 and the V2. Slovakia and Hungary are creating one camp, and Poland and Czech Republic seems to be more aligned with the EU as that. So I am asking if, for instance, any outcome coming from European Parliament might be also affecting the Visegrad Group.
The countries, the governments of the Visegrad Group are non-aligned because they come from 4 different party groups. So in the sense of party politics, there isn't going to be any increase of collaboration or decrease of collaboration. It's at the low point currently, also because of the politics that divided the camps that ruled in the capitals of the 4 countries. The primary source of the direction for the Visegrad Group is going to be and will remain the European Union and the decisions that are being brought about from the European Council, where all the governments of V4 sit and they align with the major groupings, which is the European People's Party, Social Democrats, the Liberals, and the Greens. But, for instance, non-aligned Hungary or European Conservative Reformists, which is Czechia, they are having much weaker positions. So that also tells a story of how divided European politics is, and including the Visegrad.
Right now, if we look over at Slovakia, Robert Fico's made his first statement after the assassination attempt. And actually, if you look at the narrative, this does play out, and it plays out somewhat in favor of some of the far-right groups, and it also spreads somewhat a bit of disinformation. Now, Robert Fico has been a very polarizing voice in Slovakian politics for quite a while now. He likes to play the culture wars. He likes to use very harsh rhetoric when it comes to LGBTQ and other issues, further polarizing the political scene. Yet he came out the other day and blamed the other side of the aisle, although there's no evidence to support that the attacker, the person who attempted to assassinate Mr. Fico, was from the other side of the aisle. In fact, evidence also points to Russia to some degree, although that's unconfirmed. So what does this political rhetoric do at a time when we have European elections in the country of Slovakia?
In Slovakia, Robert Fico is gaining momentum, politically speaking, in the European elections. And his party has dominated the narrative after the failed assassination attempt. And according to predictions, also we spoke about it earlier at tvpworld, the party of Robert Fico, and now himself as well, is using it as a pretext to continue what they started earlier, which is full state capture of state media, dissolve of the institutions that protect independence, judicial independence or prosecutorial independence, curbing freedoms and support for civil society organizations, and actually scapegoating them right now, as we heard from Mr. Fico himself, for the atmosphere, for the reasons behind this attack. This is premature, of course, from the due conduct in the legal sense, in the prosecutor's investigation. But politically speaking, he chose a side, and Mr. Fico has shown that after this potentially life-changing moment, he did not change his mind. He only hardened his heart, and he's going hard on the Slovak democracy. That's the effect. That's the message he's sending. We're going to see what that brings in terms of impact for Ukraine. We have to remember that Robert Fico, after being very critical about Ukraine in the beginning of the year, even then in April, he had meetings with Prime Minister of Ukraine. He exchanged views much more aligned with what NATO countries, and Slovakia is a NATO country as well, represent in support for Slovakia, condemnation of illegal war by Russia. we're going to see only the effects on foreign policy after, I believe, the vote in the European parliamentary elections.
Right. So very briefly, because we're out of time, would you say out of the V4 countries, the one to pay particular attention to would be Slovakia?
No, I think the attention needs to be paid to Poland, where the government is likely to confirm its position in dominance. The parties of the government, the coalition government, are likely to have overall more MEPs, and they are going to be deciding the future direction, strategic directions of the European Union, the future shape of the Commission, and ahead of the upcoming 2025 EU presidency of Poland. Right. This is a deciding moment, and the leader in this grouping is definitely in Warsaw.
Indeed, a momentous time. Wojciech Przybylski, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your insights.